From this moment on, they will stop standing by, as they had for centuries, and step forward to help the people directly. In the United Nations conference, the man declared that on behalf of all mages, he promised this in his name as the Archmage Jung Ui-hyuk. In this world, when humanity's own mistakes were driving civilizations to ruin, mages appeared, and the problems everyone thought were hopeless disappeared like magic. No, they were solved by magic itself. The world now saved by magic entered a golden age like never before. And Jung Ui-hyuk, the archmage who led the mages and shared magic with the world, became the greatest, most honored, and beloved person in the world. But even so, there were still far too many problems that needed magic. Jung said that he couldn't solve them all on his own, so he needed more righteous and wise mages to help him. Looking at a boy, he said that he needed his help, promising that, as the greatest archmage, he will make the boy the second greatest archmage. Asking him when that time comes, will he promise to help him, extending his pinky towards the boy named Yujin. Yujin took his master's finger and made a promise that he would, smiling happily. 26 years later, in a dark hallway, a girl was calling out to her teacher as he looked at her with a horrified expression. She was crying, begging him to save her as she crawled on the floor. She said that something was wrong, she couldn't move her legs. The man looked at her, seeing her lower body looking like it had completely melted away as a hand slowly approached them. As the hand touched the girl, her head began melting away as she screamed for the figure to wait, asking him to give her one last chance as the hand completely melted her away, leaving the man disturbed. He jumped back, unable to believe that it was real. As a giant, creepy figure approached him from the shadows, he thought about how he had always believed that it was just a childish ghost story. Someone who went around finding mages and destroying them with his Bazire magic in horrific ways. The archmage, Jung Ui-hyuk's one mistake. His abandoned disciple, Yujin. The man screamed at the figure not to come any closer, saying that if it wanted something, it should stay there and talk. As the figure approached, the man shot a fireball at it, screaming for it not to come any closer. The fireball hit the monster called Yujin right in the face as the man tried to run away. He thought he could believe no matter what happened in this world because there was magic, but that thing, that hideous thing, couldn't be magic. Suddenly, Yujin grabbed hold of the man's head as he started melting him away. In a dark room, a crowd of people had gathered around a door, wondering what the noise was all about. They couldn't see anything, thinking if this really was a rescue. Just then, with a clank, the door opened, as they all happily shouted that the nightmare was finally over. But from the door, Yujin suddenly crept in, saying with a smile that he had found them. Soon, the police arrived at the scene with ambulances. An officer informed a woman that everyone was in a severe state of shock as they were being carried away, but all the kidnapped victims were alive and not in danger. But looking at the traces in the building, no matter what, they still couldn't get used to it. A pile of bodies lay in the building, all melted together yet still alive. They knew only one mage who could do something like this. Suddenly, a cheerful voice called out to Detective Kim Soon-ye. With a tense face, she greeted the man. As Yujin walked up to her, thanking them for all the hard work while he was still dragging around something, Yujin asked Kim about the kidnapped people, as she told him not to worry, for everyone's life was safe. Yujin was relieved to hear this, since when he had opened the door, they had all started screaming and fainting, saying that it was so chaotic that they wouldn't believe it. He had thought that they had been tortured, so he called the police immediately, but he was worried that they might have been too late. Picking up the thing he was carrying, he explained that it was the mages who had kidnapped and locked up homeless people and runaways, forcing them to process magic materials. Yujin couldn't believe that people who called themselves mages would do such a thing, saying how terrible it must have been for the kidnapped people to be in such panic as the mages who were all melted together started apologizing, begging Yujin to lift the spell. Yujin told them not to worry, as after a night's sleep they will be back to normal, telling them to reflect on what they had done. He started compressing all of them into a small ball, handing it over to an officer, saying that it will be easier to transport them like this. Mage Yujin, both his looks and magic were unsettling and creepy, but he was kind and nosy. It was overwhelming. Thinking about how much he had helped them, Kim realized that they couldn't judge people by their appearance. Bowing down, she thanked Yujin for his help. Yujin told her that there was no need for her to bow her head. For when a mage causes a problem, it is only right for another mage to fix it. Saying that if she ever needed anything, she just needed to reach out. Kim was thinking about how hard it was to look past his face. Yujin then told her that these days, there were rumors of a serial killer traveling around the country. People were anxious, so they were keeping tabs as much as they could. People said that his face was so horrifying that it left them speechless and that he butchered people till they were unrecognizable, saying that they needed to stop him before there were innocent victims, asking Kim to let him know right away if they find any clues. Detective Kim thinking whether she should tell him that the rumors were about him. Yujin was then surprised by how much time had passed. Kim asked if he had any plans. Yujin explained that he was going to start the thing he was getting ready for, noting how he should give Kim one too as he started rustling through his pocket. Yujin handed her a flyer, asking her to spread the word as much as possible. With that, he excused himself, waving her goodbye as he left. Kim then took a look at the flyer, getting shocked by what she was seeing as she wondered if Yujin realized his situation at all, wondering if he was really going to do this, as Yujin walked away smiling. 30 years after the mages, led by Jungwoo Hyuk, declared their arrival, magic became essential to almost every industry. From food, to medicine, culture, and protection, to even weather control. And still, there weren't enough mages. At the city center, a voice rang out, telling the people that they needed their help, saying that with systematic education and their know-how, they will guide their magical talents, asking them to become a mage who shines a light on the world. This was the message of director Choi Isok, the man who worked with the authorities in magic education. But below that giant billboard stood a strange-looking man, inviting people to join the Yujin Magic Academy, explaining that they taught various kinds of magic that would help them with the entrance exams, employment, and starting a business. Yujin had worried about this a lot. Even if he couldn't be with his teacher, he wondered how he could keep the promise he had made to him. Even with so many problems left that needed magic, so much magic that was meant to make a better world, was still being used to hurt and exploit others. He had tried to fix things case by case when they appeared, but that could never solve the root of the problem. There had to be something he could do. Yujin wondered about it, sitting on a park bench, thinking about what he could do as an archmage's disciple. He wanted to make a real contribution to the world, something that could have as big an impact as possible. Just then, Yujin noticed something. He saw a teacher leading a group of children, telling them all about their surroundings. But then the woman froze up as she saw Yujin. The eyes asked her why she wasn't moving as she tried to get them away from Yujin. But looking at them, Yujin had finally found it. The way to increase righteous, smart, and kind mages, who will dedicate themselves to the world. Handing out a flyer for his school to a scared woman, he asked her if her child had ever dreamed of becoming a mage, telling her how learning magic during adolescence helped with creativity, focus, emotional growth, and character building. Yujin thought that if he could raise the mages himself, it could work. He tried to explain more about his school to the woman, but she just ran away with her child. Yujin thought that it was a given, as one would need to think carefully about their child's education. But more importantly, he hadn't handed out a single flyer yet, as hardly anyone was coming his way. Thinking that people must really be busy these days, walking away so fast that he couldn't even talk to them. He needed a way to get their attention as his eyes suddenly fell on something. Suddenly, a crunching sound filled the place, with people turning around to look at what was making the noise. The people saw Yujin grow larger than anything they had ever seen. Yujin thought about how he had to grow even bigger as his body started expanding. The bigger he was, the more flyers he could hand out, having taken inspiration from a flailing tube man as tentacles started growing out of him. For the final touch, he just needed to transform the flyers a little. With that, he started handing out flyers to the people, but everyone ran away from the gigantic monster that was before them. He stopped the people by putting the flyers before them with his tentacles, asking people to join his school with his mouth appearing on the flyer itself. Yujin was excited by this, wondering why he hadn't thought about it sooner. Attention-grabbing entertainment was basic marketing after all. When he was little, his teacher had taken him to an amusement park to see the tall clowns. It had been such a fun and memorable experience for him. Giving people happy, unforgettable experiences through magic was one way to use magic for good. Suddenly, a loud voice came from behind, calling him a psycho killer mage who murdered mages and non-mages alike, confusing Yujin. Suddenly, a fireball came crashing into Yujin's head, burning it. A man was startled by this falling before Yujin, but Yujin kicked him out of the way before falling on the ground. The attacker said that he had come to see why it was so noisy in front of his academy, surprised to see it was the infamous murder monster. The man said that it was a school for future mages, asking Yujin how he could dare to make trouble here. The people were surprised to see that the director of the Prime Academy, Choi I-suk, was here, saying that he was a veteran battle mage, so they could relax. The people started praising Choi, as he thought that this was a good time for some publicity. He wondered if he should have waited a little bit longer, for he did not think that a basic bombing spell would blow Yujin's head clean off. He should have used more impressive spells for the visuals, but the crowd suddenly grew confused. A voice came from above Chi, saying that using magic like that in the city was dangerous and it was lucky that only he got hit. Choi jumped back, seeing Yujin, who was now standing before him. He had clearly seen his skull crack, wondering how he was totally fine, before Yujin grabbed him by his face. Yujin then said that it must be him, the so-called serial killer who had been hurting innocent people with his magic, saying how, since his face looked okay, he wasn't so sure. But when he saw the people screaming and running away, yelling that the serial killer was here, he was convinced, calling Choi a crazy monster. But the biggest, most unforgivable reason was that no one but a brutal criminal would blast a stranger's head with magic. Questioning if Choi had learnt magic only to use it for this, because there was no way a normal person would explode the head of an innocent person. He then started melting away Choi's head, saying that he would pay for his crimes, telling him to reflect and search his soul for redemption. A few moments later, Yujin notified Detective Kim about this, saying that everyone should feel safer now, as Choi lay on the ground with his upper body melted and his legs still shaking. It was time to get back to publicity. But Yujin was surprised to see that there was no one around. At a different place, two people were looking at their phones, thinking how creepy Yujin was. They couldn't believe that someone like that walked around in broad daylight, wondering if he had used magic to disguise himself, as there was no way that was his real face. There had been rumors that Yujin had been the Archmage's disciple, and they were concerned whether it was true. The girl took the phone away, saying that they could just ask someone. Walking up to a girl as they noticed that she was finished working, she asked her friend if he had forgotten who they worked for, as their boss was Youngwi Hyuk's own daughter and disciple. The girl ran over to the mage, asking her to take a look at the phone. The opponent before her tried to attack her one last time, but was put down immediately with her single finger. The girl asked her boss if she recognized the man in the photo. Saying how there had been rumors that this man had been the Archmage's disciple, the man thought that this was pointless, and they were only going to get yelled at. Even though the Archmage has many disciples, they couldn't believe that some no-name would pretend to be his disciple. But their boss, looking at the phone, immediately recognized it as Yujin. They were shocked that she really did know him, with the man telling her to be more careful. They asked their boss if she was mad, only to see her crush the phone into pieces. The man screamed to see his phone being destroyed, as the girl apologized to her for getting her mad. But the girl was sure of it. Even after all these years, she could recognize that face anywhere, as she recalled her time together with the Archmage and Yujin. Finally, she had a chance to prove herself to her father. Among all his disciples, she would prove that she, as the daughter of the Archmage, was the best, and Yujin will be the proof she needs. Back at the city center, Yujin put Choi's body back together. He apologized to Choi for the misunderstanding, saying that he had no idea that he was the director of an academy. Choi accepted the apology, asking Yujin to leave quickly, as he would like to rest now. Yujin said that he was sorry for promoting right in front of his academy, but if it bothered him, they could have just talked it out instead of attacking him with magic. Making Choi frustrated that she would have done so if Yujin looked like someone he could reason with. Detective Kim then asked Yujin to leave things like killers to the police, saying that he should focus on his new academy, and that if they ever needed his help, they would reach out. Yujin agreed to her proposal, saying that he would then continue his promotion elsewhere, with Kim saying that she would be cheering him on. They then told him to take care, waving goodbye as she thought that even though he was not a kid, she couldn't help but worry. Yujin then declared that he would try to promote his school in front of the elementary school next, making the police's faces drop in fear. He liked the sound of teacher Yujin, determined to gather plenty of students and get his academy started, as he wanted to be a teacher who raised great mages. The little girl did not know if she could call it magic, but she was happy that she had finally performed a spell. In excitement, she showed it to her dad. Her dad praised her, proud that she was his daughter. He told Ain to remember that being special wasn't about being satisfied just because she had something. Talent only truly shone when she used that gift for something worthy of it, saying that she had to become someone special who could match the talent that he had given her. Ain happily said that she would become an archmage like him, as she was his daughter. Ain then asked her father where her uncle Yujin was, as she wanted to brag to him right away. But her father hesitated to tell her something. Back in the present day, Choi called Yujin a complete lunatic, saying that he turned people into mush with some unknown kind of magic, and how he still wasn't able to get that creepy face out of his head. Choi asked Ain if that monster was really a former disciple of the Archmage Jung. Ain explained that if he could count a war orphan that the Archmage took in out of pity and raised as a disciple, then yes, but she wanted to focus on how they still weren't able to understand the kind of magic Yujin was using. Choi said that if he hadn't let his guard down, then he wouldn't have been defeated so easily. He asked Ain to let this go, as there were too many rumors already. But this time, he was prepared, having gathered the best graduates from his academy's combat track. So no matter what bizarre magic Yujin tried to pull, as long as they had her, they would win. But Ain told him that he was mistaken. She had come here to get information on Yujin, not to hear such a long story about how Choi had lost. Getting up, she prepared to leave, saying that there was no need to see her out as Choi tried to stop her. The men Choi had hired suddenly blocked the entrance, telling Ain that it was pretty rude to visit someone and act like this. They said that it was fine if Ain couldn't help, but her attitude was uncalled for, asking her to apologize to Choi. Ain tried to talk with them, but the group did not listen as they started passing mocking comments. Choi tried to stop them, telling them to let her go nervously, but the men just kept saying how Ain was acting prideful only because she was the Archmage's daughter, making her irritated. After a few moments, Ain opened the door, telling Choi that before teaching his students magic, he should teach them manners. With Choi sitting in the now destroyed room, with all of his men having passed out after having been beaten badly. Meanwhile, in a cafe, Yujin was laughing while looking at his computer. A man sitting near him was irritated by the constant laughter, angrily walking up to Yujin to talk with him. He asked Yujin if he thought he owned the cafe or something, telling him to quiet down. But as Yujin turned, the man went quiet, seeing his face. Taking out his earbuds, Yujin apologized, saying that he must have been quite loud. But the man and woman, still shaken from fear, apologized for disturbing him and told him to enjoy himself. Yujin thought about how the algorithms were really scary, wondering how much procrastination he had done while looking for materials. Previously, he had no plan at all, so he was totally lost on where to start. So he tried looking up social media marketing like Detective Kim had told him to. Getting back to work, this time he was determined to stay focused and look up resources, but just then he noticed something on his feed. As he was staring at his laptop, a tap came from behind. Turning back in a panic, he tried to explain that he was going to watch this one thing and get back to work, startling the girl behind him. Seeing as how she had fallen down, he apologized to her. The girl asked him if he was Yujin as he answered her. The two explained that there was someone who really wanted to meet him, asking if he could come with them for a moment. On the phone, the man informed his boss that Yujin was coming along quietly with them, asking him not to do anything suspicious, as they were in the middle of the city. He then cut the call, saying that they were going to grab a cab and be there soon. Yujin said that he was curious about who he was meeting, asking the girl if she could give him a hint, but she said that they wanted him to be really surprised, thinking about how she had gotten excited and spoken to him first, which she wasn't supposed to. Yujin kept on thinking who it could be, as the man behind him wondered what made him look like that. It was not just the way Yujin looked. The whole vibe he gave off was putting him on edge. Who knew when he would show his true colors, and if he did anything suspicious, they would have to act right away as he prepared a spell. He had thought that this would be a simple escort job, but he didn't expect it to feel this tense and suffocating. Sometime before this, Ain had briefed the two about Yujin. He was currently 34 years old. At around age 4, he was a war orphan, living alone, when the Archmage had taken him in and raised him to become a mage. He worked as a lead researcher at the Magic Technology Research Foundation and then went missing about 14 years ago. The two were surprised that he was really the Archmage's disciple, with the girl being shocked to see his childhood photo. She wondered how a cute kid could turn into something that terrifying. Ain explained that while the two brought Yujin here, she would finish her preparations. The man asked her if she could tell them what she was planning to do once they brought him here. Ain explained that on the day Yujin disappeared, her father told her that Yujin had disappointed him. The disciple who had always stayed by his side and had his favor had turned his back on him and vanished. And now, after all these years, he suddenly showed up again. She was going to find out whether he had any intention of threatening or disgracing the Archmage. And if there was even the slightest chance that he did, she would stop him, breaking the pill in her hand. So once they brought him here, she would handle everything herself, asking the two to focus on locating him and transporting him to her. The girl was still anxious about Yujin, wondering why he had been glaring at her this whole time. It was so creepy she could barely breathe. But she thought that there was no way Yujin would do something out in the open like this. Just then, Yujin suddenly leaned in near her ear. Saying that he finally understood, he asked the girl if she worked with Ain. Reaching into his pocket, he pulled out his phone, trying to show her a video, but was shocked as the girl suddenly cut his hand off with a spell. She said that there had been a change of plans, telling the man that they were going to subdue Yujin and drag him in. The man knew it would end up like this, as he activated his spell and slammed Yujin into the pavement. Looking at his body on the ground, they realized that they were in trouble. The man shouted at the girl, saying how Ain had just told them to bring him in, and they had blown it, worried if Yujin was dead. He asked what had possessed her to cut off his arm like that, as she said that she was scared, as he was staring at her and reaching out with his hand. But Yujin's hand suddenly began moving by itself. They heard Yujin's voice as the hand reattached itself to his body, apologizing for startling them as it wasn't intentional. Picking his body up, he said that no matter how upset they were, this was a bit too much of a way to blow off steam. Before leaving, they had asked Ain what they should do if Yujin attacked them first, wondering what would be the best way to deal with it. There were rumors that he had killed quite a few mages, and he was a former disciple of the Archmage, so they were not sure people at their level could handle him. Ain told them not to worry about it. Even if his magic talent was outstanding, Yujin was still just a researcher. The man, Go Huim-young, was a top-class Cody guard who successfully protected high-ranking executives from countless assassination attempts. And the girl Ju Eun-hye was a veteran mercenary who fought through terrorist mage-infested war zones on her own. They were nothing like the poser Choi, asking the two to trust her judgment for choosing them as her partners. But she still told them that if anything were to happen, they were to respond while minimizing the damage and contact her immediately. When Ain arrived at the scene, she was disturbed to see the people running away in panic as she witnessed Yujin melting Go and Ju together with his magic. Looking at the creepy man with an ice spear still in his head, turning her friends into mush, Ain immediately attacked Yujin, knocking him back. She rushed towards Go and Ju, asking if they were okay. Go warned her that whatever magic Yujin was using made it so that no matter how much they hit him, he kept regenerating, and it could cut through their defense magic like it was nothing. Most of all, if he touched them, it was over, calling him a complete monster. A crowd then gathered around them, recognizing Ain as she prepared a spell. Casting it, she said, they should change locations, teleporting them away from the city. The group then arrived at a wrecked town area. Looking at Ain, Yujin was surprised that he wasn't seeing things after all, excitedly remarking at how much she had grown. He said that it had been a long time, realizing that after 14 years, she must be 22 now, asking her if she remembered her uncle Yujin. Noticing her hat, he said how her dad must have given it to her, happy that she had managed to become a mage in the end, remembering how he used to cheer her on. But Ein asked her why he had done this to the people she had sent. Yujin explained that when he first saw them he made a mistake, and he guessed they did not like it because they started throwing spells at him. He was worried people around them would get hurt, so he just tied them down until they calmed down. Ein said that she didn't really care about the details. She was wondering what reason she would come up with to fight him, but since he was already broken, she guessed that she did not need one, activating her mage gear and bringing out her staff. She was enraged at him for having done this to her employees and for all the trouble he had caused, hiding behind the name of a disciple of the Archmage, confusing Yujin. So that's why he had to fall to her, as she began dual casing and preparing her spells to attack. Her skills were now the proof that she, and not he, had taken the place at her father's side, telling Yujin not to talk as if he were close to her as she began attacking him. Back at the Prime Magic Academy, people were cleaning up Choi's office up as a man shouted at Choi that this was an insult to him and their whole academy. They did not care if Ain was the Archmage's child, they had to put her in her place. Choi said that he knew his people were upset, but told them to let it go, explaining that she was the blood of the world's greatest mage, the Archmage Young, asking if they thought that she only inherited his money. Choi had once ended up on the same team as her by chance on a mission to wipe out a mage crime syndicate. That was the first time in his life that he felt his magic was pathetic. Looking up at Ein, who had uprooted the entire area by herself and changed the surroundings themselves, he understood that the gap between them was so big it was hard to believe that they were both mages. That is why he stayed quiet, even after being treated like he was nothing, saying that even if every combat mage in their academy, including him, charged at her, he couldn't imagine them so much as scratching a single hair on her head. Back at the compound where Ein and Yujin were, we see a battle taking place. Go and Ju are stunned by what they are seeing. Ein's magic was basically considered a natural disaster. So the idea of her losing was almost impossible as she cut apart Yujin into pieces. While regenerating himself, Yujin thought that something was strange. Looking at Ein, he wondered why she was so angry. Forming his mouth behind her head, he asked her if something bad had happened, saying that the Ein he knew wasn't the type to throw a fit just because she was in a bad mood, as Ein blasted his mouth away, telling him to shut up. She did not want a traitor like him calling himself her uncle. He had betrayed her father and disappeared without a word. Then he shamelessly showed up again and dragged the name of a disciple of the Archmage through the mud. So, as her father's true disciple, she was just punishing him as she basted him with multiple spells, tearing apart his body. Yujin was surprised to hear about his betrayal. He wondered if he had done something to upset Ein enough to make her fling attack spells at him the moment they had met after all these years. Just then, Yujin remembered something. Back when Ein was young, she was unable to use magic. Yujin asked her what her dad had said, and she answered that he had told her to wait a little longer. But she was upset that all the other kids with talent had already started learning basic magic, even when they were younger than her. With tears in her eyes, she asked Yujin what she should do, for if she really couldn't be a mage, then she would disappoint her father, but Yujin stopped her. He told her not to worry, as she was the daughter of the greatest archmage in the world, and he loved her more than anything else. He assured her that he and her dad would figure something out and turn her into a mage as amazing as her father. And when she could finally use magic, he and she would study magic together, promising her that he will train her so well that her dad will be blown away, making Ein stop crying as she held his pinky, sealing their promise. Looking at the finger now, Yujin was sorry. He was sorry that he couldn't keep that promise, but what bothered Ein was something else. She had thrown every kind of magic she could at him, and not a single spell worked. Wondering if the thing that Yujin was now could even die, as he pulled himself back together from the pieces, with the only thing on his mind being that he was not going to die without seeing Ein become a great mage. But Yujin had also realized something else. Ein was gripping her chest while panting heavily. She had panicked and burned through too much mana. Calming herself down, she thought that whatever that regeneration magic was, Yujin was overconfident in it. He looked relaxed and was not reacting now, but unless you were an archmage, magic had limits. And there were plenty of spells that could restrain a regen mage. But first, she needed to slow down her heartbeat. Just then, however, Yujin called out to her, saying that he was sorry, that it had taken him this long to realize this. He had been so happy to see her that he had completely forgotten. Saying that she must have wanted to show off all the magic she had worked so hard on while he was gone, shocking her, he told how she must have wanted to show him how skilled and amazing she had become, all on her own. Saying that seeing her handle such a wide range of spells like this had shocked him, making him imagine how much she must have practiced to get here, and how her dad must be so proud of her. Ain remembered how her father had praised her when she had finally learned magic. She had managed to get into a magic school as a top new student within a year. Ain said that she was going to be the best mage of all of her father's disciples, so this was the bare minimum. He still had to teach her a lot more. Her father encouraged her to keep working hard, saying that he would be waiting for the day she became a disciple he could be as proud of as Yujin. As proud of as Yujin, those were the words that clung to her. She never let magic out of her mind as she studied, training on the brink of death and building up her achievements. Her father always praised her efforts and results, but he never once called her his most proud disciple. Even after Yujin, the uncle who had let her father down and disappeared, he still stayed closest in his heart as his most proud disciple. Yujin was still looking at Ain with a smile. Actively and specifically praising a student's effort and growth were the student mental care methods he had studied in order to run an academy, thinking that with this much, her heart should soften. But Ain got even more irritated, breaking apart her pillbox in her hand. This confused Yujin, as Ain shoved all the pills in her hand into her mouth. Her friends became concerned as her magic began to flare. Even now, all of her works and achievements, everything she had built, were written off by him as a kid showing off. Activating a deadly spell, she told Yujin that if he was watching anyway, then he should try taking on this attack with the great regeneration magic of his. For if this was what it took to shake off her inferiority complex, so be it, go. And Ju began panicking, asking Ain to calm down, for if she were to use that spell here, then they would all die. Yujin was amazed to see Ain use such a spell. He was excited to see that Ain had finally managed to climb all the way up to the pinnacle of magic, triple casting. He was incredibly proud of her, wondering how hard she must have had to work to master the magic of this level. As the spell charged up, Yujin was determined to help honor all the effort she had put into it and bear an even greater fruit. Ain had finally completed her triple casting, ready to throw it at Yujin. But just then, she was shocked as Yujin let out a smile. What she needed right now was not praise, as he shot out his hand towards her, merging it together with her arm, shocking Ain. Holding her up, he began advising her on the manual control circuit of her triple spell, saying that if she were to tweak the mana distribution a tiny bit, it would be way more efficient. According to him, what Ain needed right now was someone to point her in the right direction so she could go even further. Go and Ju looked at the sight before them as Yujin dispelled the triple casting, wondering if they should be happy that they survived or afraid of Yujin. Looking at Yujin, lecturing her on and on about her magic, Ain became irritated, breaking her arm free of him, angry that he still hadn't fixed that habit of his. Yujin was stunned as Ain asked if he still did not understand what he had done wrong, wondering if he was going to say he just wanted to help again. He always nitpicks at every tiny mistake he spots at any time or any place. They were literally fighting each other, and he was still lecturing her, making her wonder how someone could go over 10 years without changing at all. Even when she had baked cookies for her dad's birthday, he was still nitpicking at their taste, making her question why he was taste testing them and giving food critic notes. Not caring at all about how embarrassed she was in front of her dad, shouting at him to stop meddling and patting himself on the back after dumping unnecessary advice on people. Ain then composed herself, realizing how she had acted. Yujin was still shocked from her words, but then noticed Go and Ju going over to undo what he had done to their bodies. Ain was embarrassed that she had yelled, thinking that if they kept arguing, it was she who was going to look crazy. Changing the topic, Yujin asked Ain when she had first started using magic. For he and her dad had worried a lot about how to help her use magic. Thinking about it a little, Ain said that it was the day after Yujin had left. Suddenly, something dawned on Yujin. Go and Ju were happy to see their bodies return to normal, as Ain said that they should leave now. Turning to Yujin, she said that whatever he had been doing these days, there were now a lot of mages who were out for him, but she was sure that he would manage. As Yujin stood silent, Scratching at the stitches on his neck, she asked him to be careful so that he wouldn't drag down her father's reputation any further. She also said that there was no need for him to go back to the Archmage anymore. For both her and her father, there was no longer an empty place waiting for him. With that, they began getting ready to leave, Ju asking if they were going to leave Yujin here. Ain then called out to Yujin to begin the teleportation, asking her where he lived so that she could drop him off. She then took out her card to give it to him, saying that if anything happens, he can call her number and not go running to the Archmage. But as Yujin extended his hand to take the card, he suddenly plunged his hand into Ain's body. Ain was too shocked even to react, as her friends began panicking. Yujin then suddenly pulled something out of Ain's body. Digging at his stitches, he could not believe what he was seeing. He had prayed that it would not be true. Remembering the past, he had tried so hard to understand. As the Archmage cut his body into pieces, ripping out his heart, he had told himself that there had to be a reason. He had promised himself that he would believe that, but now holding the same heart in his hands, he wondered how his teacher could take his heart from him. This was something he could never forgive. A man shouted at Jung, asking him what he had done. Jung jokingly said that the man was going to burst his eardrums, asking him if he could talk a little quieter while holding on to a young Yujin. The monkey-looking man was furious that Jung was teaching magic to these inferior humans, asking him why he thought that they had been hiding for centuries. The people could not even control the primitive knowledge they had and brought about their own destruction. He had agreed with Jung's plan because he had said that mages should lead humanity, not so he could hand a sword to those who did not deserve it. Jung called the man foolish, telling him to get his wording straight, as mages were humans too, making the man even angrier. Jung explained that while mages had stayed hidden, magic had stayed stagnant as well, so making magic public was not salvation, but a path to coexistence. The monkey man then activated a spell, mocking Jung's words. With a single move of his hand, the man destroyed an entire city area, killing everyone there. Asking Jung if living with mayflies whose lives they could wipe out with a single wave of the hand was really coexistence, Jung then called out to the man as Frederick, saying that if he did not trust him, then he should just stay quiet and watch. The times would change, and so would mages. And for all he knew, one of those mayflies he looked down on so much might one day become such a terrifying mage that even he, the strongest mage alive, might look like nothing. Jung then shielded Yujin as he prepared a spell of his own, saying that before any of that happened, a mere mage had dared to stand against the Archmage, asking Frederick if he knew the price for it. But in the present, Ain was sleeping on a couch. Opening her eyes, she heard some people talking around her. Jolting awake, she was surprised to see Go and Ju sitting beside her. As she asked where they were, Yujin suddenly appeared before her, asking if she was okay. Startled to see his face, she jumped back. Ju then explained that they were at Yujin's magic academy. Ain was surprised to hear that they were at an academy. Yujin told her that he had decided to open a magic academy and was super busy right now getting it ready to open. He still had to finish the interior and recruit students, but he was trying his best at promotion. Looking at her chest, Ain realized that there was nothing wrong with her heart. Wondering if he had pulled it out with that weird magic and put it back in, she asked Go and Ju why they were just sitting there casually chatting with the man who had ripped out her heart. As they tried to explain, it was not the case in a panic. Go then explained that Yujin had apparently known about Ain, and also about her heart condition. Hearing this surprised her, as she asked Yujin if he had punched a hole through her chest just to check that. Go said that she had used some huge spells today, making him think her heart was under strain, and that's when it went into shock. When she had collapsed, it was Yujin who had panicked and hauled all of them there on his back. Her heart condition was confidential, so they couldn't just take her to a normal hospital. Ain apologized to Yujin for the trouble, saying that they would get going as they did not want to bother him anymore. Getting up, the three of them began to leave. Just then, Yujin stopped Ain, saying that he needed to tell her something important. Looking at Yujin, Ain told Go and Ju to go on without her. Walking out on the street, the two talked about how Ain really must have a strong stomach, wondering if growing up looking at a face that creepy just broke her emotions. Suddenly, her terrible attitude made a lot of sense to them. Ju then asked Go why he was looking at the flyer of the man who had ripped their boss's heart out while she was alive. Go wondered if Yujin had lost his mind, wanting to teach students with that face and horrifying magic of his. Still, it had been impressive. Regeneration, which could pierce through defensive magic, learning from him might not be a bad idea. Ju really questioned if he thought that a mage was going to spill the secrets of their most prized magic just because one paid them. Go then joked that Yujin was just going to ask Ein to promote his magic academy. As the two joked that it was the kind of magic that even the archmage's own daughter couldn't do anything about. Just then, they bumped into a man. Apologizing to him, they started walking away. But the man suddenly told them to wait. He said that he had seen them before on the internet, recognizing that they were the mages who worked with the archmage's daughter, Ein. The two started blushing, thinking that their fame had reached out, asking the monkey-faced old man where he had seen them. Removing his glasses, the man said that young people like them must not recognize him, but he was like a brother to Ain's father. So basically, he was Ain's uncle. Back at Yujin's office, Ain asked him what he had wanted to say. Yujin asked her about how every time she used magic, it put a strain on her heart. Ain questioned if her father had told him about it, saying that there was no point in hiding it now, and that he was right. If she kept using magic like this, she would probably die before long, making Yujin tense. Ain said how ironic it was that even though she had inherited this incredible magic talent from her father, she had ended up like this. Her father had called it a rare condition known as mana allergy, explaining that the strain kept building up in her heart, and in the end, it would explode and kill her. Yujin let out a chuckle, hearing about the excuse of a mana allergy, thinking about how his teacher had come up with a pretty convincing lie. Ain then asked him if he had ripped out her heart because he was curious about that, saying that he really had the same ridiculous impulse as ever. With that, Ain began to leave, saying that she had a mountain of work to get through. But Yujin grabbed her hand, trying to stop her. He told her that in this world, there were so many things that people needed besides mages. So instead of living as a mage on borrowed time, Ain could find some other job where people needed her, saying that he would help her so that they can find her a place where she can start over again, but Ain told him to let her go. She said that he had crossed the line, reminding him that there was no empty space left for her uncle anymore, so he had no right to meddle in her life, as this was her life on the line. This was the special gift she had received from her father. Being born with this disease was her burden. So it was her problem to deal with, and at this point, any life that wasn't one of a mage was not for her. Especially if she was the Archmage's blood and still nothing special. Rather than becoming a human who is not special, despite being the blood relative of a great sorcerer, she would rather die. Thinking about it, Yujin opening a magic academy suited him perfectly. So instead of sticking his nose into her life for no reason, he should focus on all the students who would actually pay to hear him talk. Yujin had now become quite upset. He tried to tell Ain the truth, but suddenly her phone rang. Ain answered the call, realizing that Ju had called her, sounding quite strange. Just then, Ain became tense, saying that she was going over right away, telling them to hang on as long as they could. Apologizing to Yujin for the trouble, she rushed out, saying that something urgent had come up. As Yujin stood in the room alone, he regretted not telling her the truth. Back at the lab, when he was the head researcher, they had kept failing in their experiment. Even with every medical spell they knew, when they transplanted a mage's heart into someone born unable to accept mana, they couldn't stop the rejection. If they could just solve this one problem, they could create even more good mages, with charisma and wisdom. Jung told Yujin that he thought the base premise of his simulation was too extreme. He wanted to put the heart with the highest mana density they had ever seen, embracing the magic power with the highest concentration that they knew into Ain's body when she wasn't even 8 yet. Yujin said that Ain was both his teacher's daughter and his precious niece. So, of course, he would give her the best thing he had. But even if she does gain the ability to use magic, living with an expiration date would defeat the whole purpose. Saying that they should table this method for now, as there must be another way, they will just need to think it through more. But now, even if Ain knew the truth, she would not give up. Then what was he supposed to do? Should he force her to stop, take measures to prevent her from using magic? This was all because he had allowed his teacher to take his heart, Ain was going to die because of him. Sitting down, he realized that there was nothing he could choose. It was just like 14 years ago. He was still the same useless coward. Just then, Eugen's doorbell rang as he wondered who it was. At the outskirts of the city, Ain had arrived at where her friends were. A man commented on how, aside from her hair and eye color, she was not that similar, saying that she did not resemble Jung much, but that hat she wore sure did bring back memories for him. Ain thought how just having to face him was enough for her to feel the pressure. The man had once been her father's right hand, and the traitor who smashed multiple cities while fighting him. Frederick Gamora, the strongest battle mage to ever live. Frederick said that seeing Ain took him back, drinking as he spoke. Standing before her injured friends, whom he had held up with barbed spikes, he said that it made him feel sick. Frederick then threw Go and Ju at her, asking why she had kept them around, as they were so weak it was embarrassing to use them even as errand runners. Go told Ain to run, saying that she needed to call her father, with Ju telling her that she was sorry for calling her here. Ain said that she was sending them to the hospital, thanking them for everything till now, shocking them as she teleported them away. Frederick asked if she had enough time to say her goodbyes, telling her to help him out a little. He said that he was on his way to see her father for the first time in ages, and it would be rude of him to show up empty-handed as he activated a spell. Looking at him, Ain got a nervous smile, thinking that she had finally found it. Frederick said that bringing Jung his daughter's neck should make their reunion in 30 years a bit more dramatic. Ain said how he really must not get her father's taste if this is how his old friend acted, and as the Archmage's most loyal disciple, she wouldn't be letting him see her father today, telling him to choose his place of death with honor as she activated her spells. Outside the city hospital, the workers hurried over as they saw 2 injured people appear before them using magic. Seeing them heavily bleeding, they immediately decided to move them to the resuscitation room. But Go had already called someone. Back at Eugen's office, Detective Kim said that they had asked the promotion teams for help, asking Eugen to send them a simple summary, and they would put together how to prepare a marketing promotion, saying how it must be a relief, as she was the one who had suggested this to him. Kim had come to check if Eugen was in trouble again, but right now the atmosphere was so intense that it was making her nauseous. He already looked creepy, but when he was gloomy, he looked even more terrifying. Wondering what in the world happened to leave him looking this deflated, she then called out to Eugen, breaking his trance. Eugen apologized that even though she had gone out of her way to help him, he was thinking of dropping the academy plan and looking for something else to do. Kim was stunned, asking why he thought so. Eugen answered that there was a kid who was hurting herself, struggling desperately for her dream, and instead of helping her chase that dream, he had ended up pushing them to give up. Thinking that he had really hurt them in doing so, he had barged in with pointless meddling without even understanding how they felt, when he was supposed to be an educator who taught people. He did not think that this was the right job for him anymore. Kim interrupted him. She said that in her line of work as a detective, she more often than not saw something. They had to break down a door because a burglar was inside to get the victim to safety, and they, in turn, yelled at them about who was going to pay for the door. She had once rescued someone who was shaking on a bridge about to jump, and they had slapped her asking why she had saved them. There are plenty of people who are clearly in danger but do not realize it or stubbornly look away from it, asking Eugen if that meant they should just leave them there, as her job was to help them anyway, making Eugen think about it. Kim said that Eugen had decided to become an educator, and if someone was in trouble but kept looking away from it, he had to let them know that they were in danger and work it through together, helping them find a way to get through it with him, as that was an educator's duty. Eugen had wanted to do that, but he just did not see a way. As Kim pointed out, there was always a way, for this was a world with magic, so if he tried really hard, he would figure something out. Eugen finally realized it, thinking why had he not thought of it himself. Back where Ain and Frederick were fighting, the land had been reduced to rubble, and the mountains had holes in them from all the spells they were throwing around. Frederick prepared another spell, throwing a wave of fire at Ain. But Ain responded with a Tier 1 multicasting, throwing mana bolts at Frederick's attacks to block them. Frederick easily stopped it with his finger, but Ain had already appeared behind him. Using Tier 2 magic, she cast multiple spells at once, throwing all of them at him. But Frederick blocked it all with a single barrier. As she struggled to even pass her mana blade through it, he held up a single finger, blasting her away with his magic. While still in the air, Ain activated a composite spell, mixing Tier 1 and Tier 2 magic. She aimed it at Frederick, throwing an entire mountain at him with telekinesis. As it crashed into the land, destroying the entire area, it buried Frederick in it. Ain stood back, panting from the overuse of magic as she gripped her chest. But then she heard Frederick's voice, saying how she had used more elements and spell types than an ordinary mage would even dare attempt. The finesse to weave all of them into one, and the overwhelming mana to flip a mountain on its head, really made her a remarkable mage worthy of the Archmage Jung's blood. Asking if that was the kind of compliment she wanted to hear as he broke through the mountain with a single finger, Frederick said that even though Ain was able to use a bunch of spells, not a single one of them was truly solid, saying that he hadn't come here to watch her talent show. Just then, Ain activated her triple casting spell, surprising him. Using her triple run magic, she dragged down the spell with all her might, throwing it at Frederick as it destroyed the entire area. A huge explosion went off as Ain started panting, bleeding from her nose and mouth, thinking that it was finally over. After using her triple rune magic, she had burned through every spell she could use. She was now at her limit, and if she cast even one more spell, her heart would explode. Thinking that this was really the end of her magic and her life, Frederick walked up to her, unscathed by her attack. Standing before her, he asked if she was done. At the very least, Ain had hoped that her last battle and her final struggle would leave her as someone her father could be proud of. But looking at her, Frederick told her to just go home. Surprised to hear this, Frederick explained to her that when he had heard the Archmage's own child was a mage, he was actually curious to see how well he would shape her. But all he had seen from her were cheap tricks, flashy spells with nothing underneath, and some so-called triple rune spell that just stitched 3 rings together, calling it a joke. If this were the level of his own flesh and blood, then Frederick almost felt sorry for Jung, saying that killing a failure like her would just be doing Jung a favor by taking out his trash for him. Hearing Frederick, Ain was unable to believe what he was saying. Frederick claimed that he would rather die than do anything that made Jung's life easier. He should have known as soon as he saw the level of the underlings he had dragged in as bait, saying that this had totally killed his mood, telling Ain to go wash up and go to bed. Ain desperately got up, telling Frederick to finish this, taunting Frederick about how he had said that he would bring her head to her father, saying that she was not done yet, and telling him to come back and fight. For if she were to survive like this, all that would be left for her was a miserable life, where she could not use magic. Frederick was irritated by Ain's whining, saying how she was loud enough to kill him. Looking at her, told her not to make a fuss, for if someone begged him so hard to kill them, even after he had said that he would spare them, then he would gladly finish it. But before he could do something, they were interrupted as Yujin swept in, having finally found Ain. Frederick and Ain were both shocked to see Yujin, who was now standing there smiling. Back at Yujin's office, he had received a call informing him about Frederick. Getting ready to go out, he asked the caller where they were, saying that he would be heading there right away. Reassuring them that Ain will be safe, he apologized to Detective Kim, saying that something urgent had come up, as she told him that he should leave if he was in a hurry. He then asked Kim to hand him one of the flyers for his academy, thanking her as she did. He was sorry for making her worry with his gloomy face earlier, especially when she had taken time out of her busy schedule. Kim told him not to worry as things like this happened, saying that she felt bad for being nosy herself. As Yujin finished writing something on the flyer, he thought about her words, saying that it was thanks to her being nosy that he was able to find courage as he started making a hole in the wall with his magic. He told her that he would contact her again after he finished his urgent business, with her telling him to be safe. Wondering how urgent it was that he was leaving through a window, as the hole reshaped itself to become one, Kim thought about how Yujin had seemed to regain his energy, but was confused as to who on earth gets energized with such a creepy look on his face. With Yujin making his way through the air, having transformed his body into a weird-looking bird-like monster. Reaching at the location, he realized this must be the spot which he was told about on the phone. Thinking about how much of a mess the area had become, looking like it had been hit by a missile bombardment. Worried about how magic had been used to scorch the area to this extent. As he finally spotted Ein and Frederick, Eugen became relieved, swooping down towards them as he transformed his body back to normal. And just when Ein was about to use a spell, he grabbed her hand, stopping her. Seeing Eugen there, Ein questioned how he had been able to find this place. He answered that Go had called and told him about it, recalling him as the man who worked with her as he informed Eugen that Ein was in danger, saying that he would thank him later. But just then, Eugen's head was blown away completely by an attack spell. Frederick commented on how creepy it was, asking Ein who the beanpole was, saying that interrupting him was one thing, but he looked so hideous that Frederick could not even stand to look at him, so he couldn't hold back in the heat of the moment and attacked him. But Frederick then went silent as Eugen said how his temper was the same back then and now, asking him to wait a moment as he reformed his head back to their surprise. He said that he would deal with him once he was done talking to Ein, as he stabbed her chest once again with his hand. Ein asked what Eugen was doing, surprised to see him pull out her heart again. Eugen told her to look at her heart, pointing out how it was in a state where it wouldn't be strange if it exploded right now. He started lecturing Ein on her magic usage again, but Ein broke her hand free, reminding him that she had told him not to interfere. She shouted at him, asking if he did not understand with his pointless meddling, telling him not to ruin her chance to die as a mage and Jung Ui-hyuk's daughter. But Eugen just looked at her and asked why he shouldn't stop her, shouting, what kind of adult would look at a kid determined to die and just say go ahead and leave them be? Seeing his serious face, Ein was speechless. After a moment she asked him what he wanted her to do. How was she supposed to live like this? This was the only chance she had to be special to her father, saying that there was no other way to prove herself to him except this. She cried that she did not want to die either, but with a heart like this, she could not even dream of becoming a grand mage. So how else was she supposed to become her father's most proud disciple? On hearing her question, Eugen told her that it was why her uncle was here. The man in her heart that her dad had left her, which let her fly through the sky and overturn mountains, they should put that specialness down for a moment. As Ein sniffled, Eugen said that if she promised not to give up on life and give her uncle a chance to take responsibility, then no matter what it took, her uncle would make her a grand mage. Cleaning up her tears, she wondered how, even when her father could do nothing, how could Eugen hope to do something? But she swallowed the words in her mouth and accepted his offer. Because the person in front of her was the one she so desperately had wanted to become. Taking another look at Eugen, she joked that he was now grabbing someone's heart to threaten them now, saying that she would take a chance on him, asking if she should now call him master, wondering if maybe this person could let her achieve the dream she had given up on. Hearing her accept, Eugen smiled, saying that the master sounded a bit old-fashioned, telling her to call him Teacher Eugen just to be trendy as he smashed her heart in his hands, sending the monocrystals flying. Ein was shocked to see her heart being torn apart, shouting at Eugen about what he was doing, but she was surprised that it did not hurt. Eugen thought about how it was good to see his heart after so long, saying that it was shameless, but he still had a favor to ask of it. Asking it to beat no longer as his heart, but as Ein's heart now, as he reformed it into a new form without any mana crystals, putting the new organ back into Ein's body. Feeling around her chest, Ein realized that the mana that always overflowed from the heart had disappeared as she could not feel it anymore. Her heart was finally feeling peaceful, with the uncomfortable feeling of it being not her own, having disappeared. She could still live. A smile came onto her face, realizing that now she could live and somehow regain her magic, and even aim to become a grand mage. Eugen then turned his attention to Frederick, apologizing for keeping him waiting. With Ein suddenly realizing that they had just been battling, he said that since he was done talking with Ein, he would hear Frederick out if he had some business with them. Frederick, who had been scrolling through his phone, got up, saying how it was completely absurd. He did not remember how long it had been since he was ignored like this. Looking at Eugen, he said that he did not have business with Ein anymore, but there was one thing that bugged him. He called out how Eugen had said that his temper was the same as ever. It bothered him that he spoke as if they had met, saying that he did not remember ever seeing a gross-looking guy like him. Yujin noted how it had been long enough that he must have forgotten, since the last time they saw each other was about 30 years ago, back when he had some to his master and threw a tantrum, got scolded and ran away. Hearing this, an angry smile came on Frederick's face, saying how Yujin had an interesting choice of words. Wondering why all the brats raised by Jung had such filthy mouths, as he gave off an immense aura, preparing to fire a spell. Taking off his glasses, he claimed that this would make tearing him apart so much more rewarding. Ain asked Yujin if he was crazy provoking Frederick like this. He was the strongest battle mage with no equal aside from the grand mages. He had made a fuss about saving her, and now he was going to get them both killed. But Yujin reassured her, saying that this had worked out well as he placed his hand on her shoulder. He said that Frederick was too dangerous to just leave alone as the stitches on his neck started opening. And showing Ain in a situation like this would make it memorable, telling her to watch closely. As Yujin Magic Academy's first student, her teacher was holding her Grand Mage curriculum orientation. Summoning a magic rune made from his own flesh in his hand, Ain was stunned. Seeing the flesh circle with a mouth and an eye, she wondered what kind of bizarre rune it was. She asked Yujin if it was really magic, saying that she had never even heard of a rune shaped like this before. Yujin explained that it was indeed magic. Since Ain was completely defenseless right now, he was casting this, so she did not get caught up in that old man's magic. Making another flesh circle, Yujin cast 2 rune magic as the mouths of the circles began glowing. Ain was suddenly covered with light, as an all-attribute full-body protection magic covered her. Yujin told her that it was still dangerous, so she should step back. After which, he asked Ain if she had any idea how much mana that spell just used. Ain said that she had an idea of it. Aegis was the protection spell she always kept up during battles after all, but Yujin told her that the correct answer was not even a drop. Completely shocking her, he told her not to worry too much about her heart's mana disappearing, as even her teacher had 0 mana in his heart as well. Saying that what he was about to show her now and teach her from here on out was how to use magic without mana. Yujin then ran off to fight Frederick, as Ain thought about how, in a situation like this, he was saying something that made no sense, wondering if they could really win like this. Looking at Yujin, Frederick analyzed that he was a close-range type, but he did not look defenseless enough to rush in. He had heard that Yujin was Young's disciple, so he had to have something he was confident in. Thinking that for now he would just watch and see what he does. Yujin then created 2 more flesh runes, casting the 2 rune magic binding vine rope at Frederick. Frederick defended himself from the attack with a barrier, but his barrier suddenly started cracking. As Yujin put more pressure, the barrier started to bend, finally breaking apart as he grabbed hold of him with his vines, shocking Frederick. Ain was amazed to see that the barrier she had not been able to budge with her high-powered spells had suddenly broken with a basic spell like that. Frederick was amused to see Yujin's solid spell structure. Thinking that it was way better than even Jung Uihyuk's shoddy work, Yujin then raised his other hand, preparing to cast another spell by making a new rune. But Frederick broke free from his vines. Rushing behind Yujin with a spell, he said that his attack wasn't nearly good enough to provoke him like that, tearing Yujin's head off again with his flames. But seeing as the flesh had already started to form around his hand, he remembered how Yujin had grown his head back after the first time he had blown it off. He said that this was a bit shocking, as regeneration magic that could repair damage to this extreme was pretty rare, asking if this was what Yujin was banking on. Ain thought how Yujin's regeneration was disgustingly unstoppable, remembering their fight, but she was still worried that his opponent was the great mage Frederick, thinking that he might find a way somehow. Frederick then shoved his hand into Yujin's back, saying that it was not his first time seeing it. Nothing like an invincible immortal existed without a weakness. There was always a core at the center of the regeneration or some kind of limit point. So he will just disintegrate his body from the inside down to the molecular level and reconstruct it all messed up to break his regeneration algorithm. But then Frederick was shocked, asking Yujin what he was grabbing as Yujin grinned, holding the magic Frederick was casting itself. The black lightning was a chemical reaction caused by mana. The moment it touched anything, it should melt both matter and mana alike into scattered molecules. so he couldn't just grab it like he was pulling weed, thinking what kind of insane magic Yujin was using as he turned back and smiled at him with a hole still in his chest. But Frederick did not give up, casting more black lightning at Yujin's body, thinking that he would just melt and scatter everything and then counter it. But Yujin regenerated again, grabbing hold of Frederick's arm. Frederick smiled at Yujin, explaining that all he was grabbing onto was the 12 layers of high-density protection spells around his entire body. He asked Yujin if breaking his barrier had him all excited, saying that he might feel like he was grabbing his arm, but he was touching nothing. However, Yujin just smiled. As Frederick was gloating about how it was like groping at the outer wall of a nuclear bunker with his bare hands, Yujin broke through his spells, melting his arm away. Frederick was stunned to see that this had happened. Seeing his body melt away, he raised his other arm while gritting his teeth. As he chopped his arm off, surprising Yujin. Yujin said that it must hurt, asking Frederick if he really had to cut it off and not just leave it. Frederick was panicking, even when he had fought Jung Uihyuk. His defense had never been pierced this pathetically, wondering just what kind of magic Yujin was using. Yujin then called out to Ein. He said that he wanted to show her more mana, less magic, but he just did not have the leeway right now, saying that for now, he would briefly explain the ones he had shown properly. Changing the shape of his arm, he said that she had seen this one earlier today. The ability to freely alter one's own body's form and composition, and even to transform other objects that touched one's hands. Strictly speaking, it was not magic, but the name of the technique she would learn from now on was the magic used without runes, Murun magic. Frederick shot off another spell at Yujin. To him, he and his magic were both disgusting. Since earlier, he had this feeling while fighting off against Yujin. A sensation that was gradually corroding his judgment. He wondered if it was the pain from having his arm cut off, or maybe it was the bewilderment from his opponent's unknown freakish magic. Casting a high-tier spell, Frederick threw multiple fire golems at Yujin as they all jumped at him, pinning him down as they tried to burn his body. Ever since he had faced off against Yujin, as time passed, the inexplicable revulsion had risen from inside. He wondered if it was disgust. The feeling of something that shouldn't be tangled getting all twisted up. It was like facing something that shouldn't exist in this world right in front of him as he saw Yujin regenerate again and again. Giggling at his attacks, with Frederick shouting at him to stop, wondering if what he was feeling was fear. Ein was pushed back, seeing the destruction the fight between these two was causing. Frederick was now gasping, unable to believe what was happening. Looking at Yujin's body join itself together again after all he had done, he could not believe that he, Frederick Gamora, was losing to some disciple of Jung Uihyuk. To this inexplicable monster, as Yujin grabbed hold of him, tearing through his chest as he took out his heart. Pinning Frederick down, Yujin said how it was hilarious. He apologized to Frederick, saying that in this state, the more magic he used, the more his brain itched, so he couldn't help laughing. Looking at them, Ein wondered if the fight was over. Seeing the two floating over a pit of lava, with Yujin's hand going through Frederick's body, holding his heart. Even though he had said it confidently, she still had her doubts, unable to believe that Yujin had defeated Frederick. Frederick said that he had never thought he would get to see his own heart out of his body in his lifetime, asking if Yujin would believe that he had let his guard down. Yujin said that he did not specialize in combat, so he wouldn't know, but if Frederick said so, then he would believe it. Frederick said that seeing him spout snarky lines to the bitter end proved that he was Jung's disciple. He still remembered it. One gesture from that old man and the city crumbled. Amid the screams of people burning in the fiery ruins, he was someone who should not be allowed to use magic, saying that he would have to end the mage Frederick right here. Frederick told him to go and act all high and mighty, as he had earned that right, raising his hand. Since he had won this time, he was giving him a souvenir, a war trophy, as he cut off his own heart in Yujin's hand. Yujin was shocked to see this. Realizing that right before cutting out the heart, he had pumped all the heart's mana into his bloodstream at once. Frederick called out to someone named Shaori. Yujin lunged at him, thinking that he was way too dangerous, but a portal suddenly appeared above Frederick as a hand popped out, dragging Frederick away as multiple other portals cut Yujin's body into pieces. Yujin was stunned, realizing that it was spatial magic as he tried to join himself together. A woman appeared beside Frederick, saying how he had said that he was going to meet Jung Woo Hyuk, but the monster back there was not Jung. Seeing that he was missing an arm and his heart, she was worried about the mess. Shaori said that she would escort him back home, but Frederick stopped her, saying that thanks to Yujin, he had come to some realizations, and as a thanks, there was something he wanted to test out. With Yujin rushing towards them, Frederick started chanting a spell as he activated a 3-rune magic, unleashing the spell as he cut through Yujin's head. Yujin stopped in his tracks, shaking. Frederick laughed at how he didn't do this often, thanking Yujin for an unexpected big haul. As he and Shaori got into the portal, he told Yujin that he would set up a bigger and more fun stage next time, saying that they would have a proper rematch. Laughing as the two got away, with Yujin wiping the blood off his face, Ain asked him if it was over, saying how they had run away. She still couldn't believe that Yujin had chased away the strongest battle mage, saying how it was impossible without borrowing a grand mage's power. Yujin just said that luck was on his side, and Frederick had his guard down, thinking how it was a good thing that it had ended before the time was up. Ain told Yujin not to be humble, as he had won. She had known that he was amazing before, but now with his maroon magic, he was on a whole different level. Putting his hand on her shoulder, he assured her that he was going to teach her all that he could do and beyond that, for as the disciple of the greatest Grand Mage, he will make her the second greatest Grand Mage. But until then, she had to promise him that she would not get into trouble like she had today, and that she would cherish her life. Smiling at him, Ain realized how he hadn't changed at all in 14 years, promising to listen to him as she took his finger. Back at the house, a man said over the phone that Frederick had appeared. They had investigated massive battle traces from magic in the mountains outside Seoul. Fortunately, no civilians had been harmed. As the man on the phone was about to say who his opponent was, the person guessed that it was probably Ain. Thinking how she had gone after all, wondering that even if he had known, would he be able to stop her? Saying that, as her father, he did not need her to prove herself with her life. But the man then interrupted him, explaining that during the fight between Ain and Frederick, Yujin had intervened, driving away Frederick and making sure that Ain was safe. This shocked Jung. As he questioned in a confused tone, "Yujin is back?" A man questioned the doctor as they were performing surgery, saying he had come along because she had needed urgent surgery assistance, but was unsure if what they were doing was right. For their patient was Frederick, and before being a doctor, he asked as a person if it was right to save a terrorist. The woman was amused, saying how even after getting kidnapped to their hideout, he was managing to talk like that, telling the man that if he wanted to go home alive and in one piece, he should focus on the surgery. Shaori then entered the room, inquiring about Frederick, as the doctor had informed her that he was now stable. She then told the doctor to begin the procedure as a red-skinned man with white hair and horns greeted Frederick. Frederick responded, saying how all this time the man, named Linus, had been helping him clean his messes as he prepared a spell. Linus refused the compliment, saying that it had been an honor to serve him, hoping that his body would help him in achieving his great cause. As Frederick and Shaori cut off his arm and heart, the doctor confirmed that they had successfully received Frederick's son's heart and right arm and would proceed straight to the transplant surgery. Frederick then called out to Shaori, telling her to give Linus a proper funeral after his surgery was done. He then told his group, Zodiac, to assemble everyone, not knowing if it was from the fresh experience that he had or from draining out the old blood, but a better plan had come to his mind. Remembering what Young had told him while protecting Yujin, he admitted that Young had been right. The times had changed, and so had the mages, but this change was not going to unfold only in the direction that he had intended. Back at Ain's office, it was her first time trying coffee, saying how it was bitter and nutty, something she couldn't have dreamed of drinking before because of her heart. But it was not that moving a taste for her. Ju told her that it was how coffee was, asking her about her condition. Ain replied that it was the best, to the point where she wondered if she had ever felt this good before. She was also relieved to see that Ju and Go were looking okay. Ju said how she had honestly thought that they were done back then, never imagining that Ain's uncle would have a real skill in recovery magic too. When Yujin had burst into the ER, she had nearly died of shock, but they had survived thanks to him. Go then asked Ain if she was really going through with this. Closing down their entire agency like this was just so sudden. Ein reminded him that she was not a mage anymore, so she could not take on commissions, asking them to keep this a secret for now. As for the other staff, she would tell them that it was the after effects from her fight with Frederick and that she was heading abroad for recovery. Ju was still hesitant with her decision, but Ein assured them that Yujin had agreed to help her regain her magic. She did not know how long it would take, but for now, she would quietly crash with Yujin and rely on him. The two did understand that he was an amazing mage who took down even Frederick, but imagining their chief learning that bizarre magic still unsettled them. Still, they were relieved. She had always been fierce and cold and seemed to only care about performance, but somehow she now seemed much more at peace than she did when she was a mage. Thinking about how it must be thanks to Yujin, Go knew that he seemed to treat Ein with special care. They had called him as a backup since they had no way to reach the archmage Jungwi Hyuk, but now it felt like the right move. Just then, more people barged into the room, throwing open the door. A girl jumped into Ain's chest, unable to accept that she was retiring, blaming Frederick for this misfortune. Ain explained to her that it is not retirement and more like rehab. The girl asked if she was going abroad, saying that she would come to follow her as well. Ju pulled the girl back from Ein, telling her to calm down, saying that it was no use for a finance accountant to tag along, and Ein's rehab was going to be handled by Archmage Jung's capable disciple himself. Another man moved forward, handing Ein her hat, which she had left for repairs. He informed her that the transformation function and the magic coating were all fixed, but the brim was still damaged as it was way too advanced for his level. Ain told him that it was okay, as she was the one who had caused it due to her lack of skills, so she would deal with it, thanking him for fixing it this much. She then turned around and thanked everyone. Because of them, she could focus on work worry-free. She then told Ju that if she had not called her that day, she would have still gone to help them and not to beat themselves over it, thanking her for always looking out for her. To Go, she said that she would never forget it her whole life, as thanks to him she was still here. She apologized to all of them for dragging them along with her shortcomings, saying how, with their talents, they would thrive in better spots, with bigger roles. So she would give her best in the rehab and come back as a mage they could be proud of. As Ein left, she was excited. Vague as it was, it felt like everything was going to work out. So there was no more time to agonize over how things ended. Yujin had proved himself and had promised to make her as capable as himself or more. Her father's star pupil had just secured her future, as Ein arrived before Yujin's academy, deciding to trust Yujin. But as she entered, Yujin greeted her with a smile, as he was drinking a milkshake with Detective Kim, completely forgetting about how he was supposed to keep Ain coming there a secret. Kim then greeted Ain, saying that she had heard a lot about her from Yujin. Ain was irritated that Yujin had been babbling his mouth about her, even though she had specifically begged him to keep quiet. Yujin told Ain not to worry, as Detective Kim was his friend, who was super reliable. Kim then got up to leave, saying that she had just popped in from her work briefly to meet Yujin. She told Ein that she would not breathe a word about her heart issue, so she did not need to worry. Yujin then said that he would walk her out, but Kim politely declined, saying that he and Ein should chat freely. But Yujin insisted, before Ein grabbed him by the jaw, asking him what she should do about that big mouth of his. Publicly, she had told people that she was in rehab overseas. If the word got out that the Archmage's daughter, who had smashed countless criminals, was in a body that could not use magic and was holed up in some outskirts of Seoul, the villains gunning for her would love it. Yujin still tried to argue, saying that Kim was his friend and was reliable. Kim was surprised to finally see the niece Yujin had been talking about, wondering if growing up around that face had toughened her. Relieved that she had at least got a good friend. But as Kim opened the door, she noticed a man standing outside, informing Yujin that a guest had arrived. Ain was surprised to see that this magic academy got a lot of visitors, joking that Yujin should just throw a full-on Ain reveal party, but Kim was still standing near the door, stunned as the man called out to them. Ain told Yujin that she was giving up on the situation, telling him that she would be out in the hall, so he could call her when he was done. But then Ain became uneasy, seeing Yujin make a sour face as he stared at their guest. The man picked up Ain's hat, saying how hiding her pretty face under it was such a waste. Ain became agitated, saying how the man could dare to put his hands on her. But looking at him, she was also stunned as he continued asking whose Princess Ain was to be this gorgeous. He told Ain how long it had been, asking how her body had been holding up, with her replying that it was fine, greeting the man as her father. She apologized, saying how she had figured he wouldn't come to a dump like this. Jung said that places like these were exactly where he liked to go, as it was, where his precious firstborn was starting fresh. And the academy run by his proud disciple, Yujin, asking him if he had grown a bit taller as he continued to stare. Jung asked Yujin if he had met Frederick, joking about how he was still not acting his age and causing trouble, saying how he wasn't like that when he was young, as he wondered if his teenage rebellion came late. Jung then thanked Yujin. He had heard that Ain had survived due to his efforts. She was a good and smart daughter of his, but sometimes she acted impulsively, so he worried about her. But he was really glad that Yujin was his disciple. Yujin was still in a snapped state, scratching at the stitches on his neck, telling himself to hold it in. He could not do it here, not now. Ain was still watching. He needed to stay calm and get it together. He needed to hold it in. This was a situation that could happen. It was also something he would have to face someday. As his hand reached out towards Jung, he remembered how he had been cut apart and had his heart stolen by his own master. Jung let out a sigh, saying that it was a shame as he had wished to meet under better circumstances, as Yujin came rushing towards him to everyone's horror. But to everyone's surprise, Yujin started saying that he was sorry. He knew he did not deserve this, and also knew that this was not mature behavior, but he just could not hold it in as he hugged Jung tightly. Yujin said that he had wanted to see Jung badly, but he was afraid that Jung would not want to see him. He did not have the courage to visit him directly. Jung smiled at Yujin's embrace, saying how he had gotten taller, as he patted him on the back, noting how he was still a child. Detective Kim then began to leave, but Jung called out to her, shocking her that he knew her name. He explained that she had known how hard she worked for the safety of the citizens and was a good person who looked after his beloved disciple, Yujin. So, as his teacher, he wanted to express his gratitude to her. Kim was shy from all the praise, thinking how she had almost lost her mind. In a different way from Yujin, Jung's face was an unbelievable one as well. Jung then turned to Ain, asking her if she had lost all her mana, to which she said yes. He was surprised that she had come looking to her uncle for help, saying that if she was going through something so difficult, she could have just contacted him first. Ain tried to explain herself, but Jung told her that it was okay since she could trust her uncle Yujin, as he was his most trusted disciple, saying how he might even be more helpful to her than her dad. Jung then told her that he and her uncle Yujin were going to talk for a bit, as he needed to have a parent-teacher conference before entrusting her to him. Activating a spell, as they disappeared in golden smoke, with Jung telling her to wait here for a moment. Arriving back at Jung's magical archive, he said that he was a bit surprised, saying how the last time he had pulled out Yujin's heart and dismembered his whole body and threw him between the gaps of different dimensions. So who would have known that he would come back? Telling Yujin that he had always exceeded his expectations, as he had cut down his body again, holding the pieces up with golden strings, asking what kind of miracle he had experienced. Jung recalled how, when he had fallen into that dimension gap, the dimensional properties had stopped decay, so he had floated in a near-death state. But he was actually more curious about something else, asking Yujin if he still did not resent him. Yujin said that the day he had saved him from dying as a child, and every single day that he had spent with him, his only life goal was to live for him. Asking Jung how he could resent him, for if he needed, he could die for him right here, right now, with a glad heart. Jung grinned upon hearing this, saying that no matter how much he thought about it, Yujin really could be the only one. Getting up, he asked Yujin if he could still do that much for him, then would he accept if Jung were to propose his plan to him once more. Yujin told Jung that, as he had said 14 years ago, that kind of plan was a no for him, saying that it was extremely and utterly creepy. Yujin was ready to do anything else to help him, but that was the one thing he could not. Jung laughed at how he had been stood up twice, and hearing excuses on top of that would make him feel more pathetic. He said that he had already given up on that plan since that day, 14 years ago, so he will just go with plan B, but still, the more he looked at Yujin, the more he was amazed, asking him how he could cause something like this without any mana. Curious as he had come back from a clearly fatal situation thanks to this magic, Yujin explained that he called this murun, or ringless magic. Even people who had no mana or so little that they could not use magic, could use this magic if they worked hard and studied it, as he had already systematized it. First, he would teach this ringless magic to Ain as his first student and help her become an archmage through ringless magic. And when aspiring mages who admire the archmage Ain appear, he will raise lots and lots of kind and capable mages who can dedicate themselves to the world. When this is fulfilled, it would not only protect people's happy lives and hope for the future, but also create a world full of good and kind magic, for that was his dream. And when that dream comes true, Jung would have no need left to execute his plan. Jung said how it was such a vague, roundabout, and optimistic dream. It was exactly like Yujin. No matter what he said, in the end, he just did not like Jung's plan. With that, Jung snapped his fingers, releasing Yujin. He told him that he would entrust Ain to him, asking him to teach her well and raise her as an archmage. Even if he won't help Jung with his plan, as long as he did not interfere, he would support his dreams too. Jung called it a shame that Yujin made him truly hopeful and then sincerely disappointed him. He was the only one who had ever shaken the archmage this much. Yujin then held Jung's hand, saying that he needed to ask one thing of him. Ain would become the second greatest archmage after him, so all the expectations Jung had of him, he asked him to pour them on Ain instead. As Ain was sitting in Yujin's office, Yujin and Jung arrived back in the room. Jung asked if she had to wait too long, saying how it had been a while since Yujin and he met, so they had talked a lot. Moving towards her, he said how it had been 14 years since she could use magic, telling her that, as her father, he had found it hard to be happy about her risking her life building up achievements to meet her dad's expectations. He just hoped that she would find a dream she wanted to achieve as a mage. Ain trembled to answer him, but Jung hugged her, saying that before being the Archmage's proud disciple, she was already her dad's most beloved eldest daughter. So, no matter what goals she had, how hard she worked, or what results she achieved, that fact would never change. As he hoped that she would find a goal worthy of her efforts, which made Ain embarrassed. Yujin looked at the two with a smile, happy to see them get along. Jung then turned to Yujin, saying that he was entrusting Ain to him. Yujin assured him that he could leave her to him, while Ain was still blushing after getting her father's affection. But then Yujin said that he was going to explain the tuition fees to them, shocking Ain. He showed Jung what all Ain would need for the curriculum, as Ain told him to wait a moment, surprised that he was going to charge money. Yujin said that it was a given as she was enrolling in the academy, but Ain argued that when he had said that he would help her, he had made it sound like he would teach her for free. Yujin explained that he had prepared a special course for Ain, and if he did not charge her tuition, the other students might think that it was unfair. Jun said that, looking at it compared to other places, it seemed very affordable, telling Ain that he would pay for it, so she did not need to worry. But Ain said that she was a 22-year-old adult now, so it was right for her to pay since she had been working and had saved up money. The two then praised Ain about how well she had grown up as she laughed nervously. Before coming to the academy, she had sold all of her magic equipment, including her suit. They had also paid all cancellation fees and all pending commissions and set up automatic donations for the next 5 years. Looking at the employees' severance pay, the girl asked if she needed to give them that much. Although the company funds weren't enough, if she were to put in this much of her own money, her remaining assets would not be much. Ain said that it was necessary to ensure that this did not damage their careers, saying that she needed to fulfill at least this much as her duty to all of them who had worked hard for her. Settling financial matters cleanly would not tarnish her or her father's reputation. Even though things had gotten so tight that she had to sell her house and move to a monthly rental, as long as there was no unnecessary spending, she would be fine. Thinking how glad she was that Yujin was not the type to demand tuition fees. But now, her hopes had been shattered as her dad and uncle continued to cheer her on. Jung then received a call, informing him that Zodiac was on the move. He said that he will go check it out. Jung told Ain and Yujin that he would have to skip lunch this time, as something had come up, so he had to head out quickly. Yujin was disappointed, saying that he would have to find a great spot for them to eat together next time. Ain also said that she was okay, telling him to take care. Jung told them to get along and take care of their health, saying that they can call him if they need anything. Waving them goodbye as he left. The two also waved him goodbye as he disappeared into smoke. Yujin wondered why he got into a car if he was going to teleport anyway, saying how even his master had his quirky side sometimes. Yujin asked Ain if she wanted to go eat lunch by themselves, wondering if she still liked tteokbokki. Ain said that anything cheap was fine, since she couldn't afford anything pricey with these unexpected expenses. Yujin told her that he was buying lunch, so she did not need to worry about money, saying that they should talk it over while they eat, the prep that she will need to turn into a grand mage. As they went to a restaurant, Yujin said that there used to be a nice snack bar under the academy, but it closed just 2 weeks after he signed the academy lease, making him wonder why that happened. He then brought up how Ain had majored in combat magic, as she told him to eat first and talk later, reminding him to call her by her name outside, with the other customers shaking in fear beside them. Ain said that even though she was a combat major, she did not particularly like fighting. But the most efficient way for her to dramatically improve her magic skills was to go through combat situations that forced her magic to the extreme, so combat magic was perfect for her in that sense. Yujin also said how most mages with outstanding skill in handling magic were combat magic majors, or at least minoring in it. If possible, he did not want to teach her in a dangerous way, but Yujin had invented runeless magic in just such an extreme situation. For now, he would always be by her side, watching over her, so they should study and practice in situations they can control. Ain agreed, asking him if he could explain more about the runeless magic, wondering how he practiced with it and how it made him a grand mage. Yujin explained that runeless magic was a technique that connected one's consciousness to all perceived and contacted matter and phenomena, transforming and reconstructing them. Once mastered, she could not only freely alter just her own body, but the properties, form, and mass of any touched object. Ain said that if she had not seen it herself, she would think it was some cult thing that one could not even guess the principles of, wondering how all this was possible without mana. Yujin explained that even though he had mentioned perception and contact, just normal senses wouldn't cut it. There were prerequisites that needed to be fulfilled first. The first prerequisite was to feel perception beyond perception, which was the scientific understanding of the structure and properties of all things in the world. Putting a mountain of books in front of her, he said that this was all she needed to read to get the scientific understanding of all things in the universe, saying that they should first start by memorizing every single piece of knowledge in the books perfectly, shocking Ain. He told her that it was just simple memorization, so it shouldn't be that difficult. But Ain was stunned, seeing books about molecular material structures, kinetics, thermodynamics, and human anatomy and physiology as well. These were books that scientists, doctors, and researchers studied, and even specialists did not memorize this insane thickness word for word. Some of the books were even in different languages. She had memorized mana structures by attribute, mana circuit recipes, and stuff like that before, but this was way outside of her field. Yujin then said that 2 weeks should be plenty for her to complete all this, shocking Ain that she had to get this done in 14 days. Seeing her excited, he said that he understood that she wanted to rush into real combat practice, but he did not want her to rush the first step. He said that he was around 6 when he first started reading all this, bringing back his memories of studying while reading these books. Ain was now in a panic, realizing how serious Yujin was, thinking that memorizing all this was no big deal. This was the difference between her and her father's proudest disciple. A monster not just in body, but mind as well. All over again, she was breaking down. Yujin said that it took him 3 weeks or maybe a month to remember all this, but since Ain was the Archmage's daughter, he figured 2 weeks would be more than enough. Ain went with the compliment, saying that she was the blood of humanity's greatest intellect, the Archmage Jung Ui Hyuk. Even 2 weeks for plain memorization felt too long for her. She could not believe what she was saying, but Yujin liked her enthusiasm, telling her not to rush it. If she diligently followed his carefully planned curriculum step by step, it would take her about 27 years and 7 months to become a grand mage, shocking Ain. Hearing the number of years, she thought that her expectations were too high for Yujin's insane magic. But no mage had reached grand mage level in under a century. Even her father had said that it took him over 100 years. It had been such a vague goal for her that she had never thought about the timeline. In comparison, 27 years was insanely short, as becoming a Grand Mage wasn't some urgent goal for her anyway. She then asked Yujin how long it would take her to regain her original level of magic skill. Hearing her, he asked specifically what level she was talking about, as she said that she was a top-tier sorcerer combat mage who was on the verge of promoting to mystic. Yujin did not understand what she was saying, but decided that he should not mention it and just look it up later. He said that he was going to do that after she memorized all those books, but doing it in parallel was also fine. He said that she must be feeling uneasy, not being able to use the magic she was good at, but Ain told him not to worry too much about it. Yujin said that before mastering runeless magic along with her training in usage sense, they needed a means to cast magic without any internal mana, so they were going to get a partner that acted as pseudo-mana. He explained that about 14 years ago, he had to go to another dimension. His condition was bad from an accident at the time, so he was drifting through dimensional rifts on the brink of death when he reached a world. And drawing inspiration from the properties of its native creatures, with their help, he invented runeless magic and saved his life. Ain was surprised to hear about native creatures from another dimension, as Yujin told her to think of them as fairies, at least classification-wise. He explained that he was opening a gate to that fairy world, asking if she remembered his warnings. Ain said that she remembered not to let go of the rope and not to fall asleep, and only look ahead and keep going. With that, they were ready to go. Yujin activated his magic as the stitches on his neck opened up, releasing tendrils as he began changing the shape of his jacket on the floor. With runeless magic, he opened the dimensional gate to the fairy realm. Even when she was seeing it, it was too ridiculous for Ain to believe. Magic without mana was now secondary. Dimensional gate magic required dozens of high-intellect, high-mana mages, pouring in national budget-level resources just to open for a few minutes. It was top-tier magic. The more he learnt from Yujin, the more distant she felt. As to become a grand mage, she needed to master magic even better than this monster. Yujin then handed her a rope he had made out of the roof, telling her not to let go. She asked him if the fairies would really handle everything if she just said his name to them. Yujin assured her that he was super tight with the fairy locals, mentioning that the coat he was wearing was actually a gift from them. He apologized for sending her alone when it was going to be scary, but he could not help it as he needed to keep the gate open. Ain said that it was fine if he said so, telling him that she would be quick. With that, she jumped into the dimensional gate, holding on to the rope. Yujin was impressed that she showed no fear. Just then, Choi arrived at a nearby building, saying how Yujin and Ain looked like they were up to something shady again. Even though Ain had taken down that monster and fled overseas, shutting her own company out of fear did not seem plausible. Saying how wandering around, relying only on her skills with no precautions, was why she had ended up like that. Hearing that Frederick had lost to Ain and fled made Choi think that it was nothing more than lies. For no matter how skilled she was, she could not have survived against the strongest mage. Choi thought about how catching Yujin would avenge his humiliation from that day and clear up his inferiority complex about Ain. But his assistant informed him that Yujin was not even wanted by the association or the police yet, saying how this was basically assaulting an innocent person. However, Choi was surprised to hear this, wondering how many times he would need to explain it to them. They had not faced the monster up close yet, so they didn't understand it. It was not just his hideous looks, but also how he was a threat to the world just by existing. Magic without mana, the horrific phenomenon that he used, and the revolting sensation of something that shouldn't exist in this world right in front of him. He was still haunted by those memories. Choi was attacking him so that civilians did not have to suffer the horrors that he did, and to preemptively take down that monster that would surely cause disaster even if dormant now. That was the duty they had as combat mages. One of the men pointed out that if Yujin had really taken down Choi, who was their director, then it might be beyond what they could handle. Saying that he must be at least a sorcerer-level combat mage, Choi asked if they were getting cold feet after one loss, saying how they were wrecked by An charging straight at her head-on. With a surprise attack, full prep, experience, and intel on the opponent, there was always a chance even against a vastly superior mage. Choi asked his assistant Tae if he had got the anti-regenerative beast counter from Northern Europe ready, saying that he had invested a ton in him. Tae told him not to worry, explaining that it was a spell designed to capture regenerative beasts who could heal even when sliced into 100 pieces, let alone regeneration via human magic. Choi trusted him, telling the others to cast their reinforcement spells ahead of time and not to forget their positions and roles, telling them to get started. If they could clean up Yujin, the Archmage's mistake, it would boost their academy's standing in the Alliance big time. This was their payback. Meanwhile, in the fairy dimension, Ain realized why Yujin had been so vague with the description of fairies. Drowning in the sea of shape-changing monsters, she cursed at him, saying that this was neither fairy-like nor a realm. Covered by the monsters, Ain remembered to stay calm. These organisms filled almost every space, but there was no excessive pressure on her body, and they did not interfere with her breathing. She recalled once more how Yujin had told her never to let go of the rope. The rope was the only connection between the world she came from and this dimension, regretting that she hadn't just tied it to her wrist before jumping in. But now all she needed to do was gather herself and keep moving forward. Walking through the fleshy corridor made it feel as if she were stepping through jelly. She could still breathe somehow, but the more she breathed, the more nauseous she felt, with her head starting to feel hazy as well. She was angry at Yujin for not telling her about these environmental conditions beforehand. He always thought that if something was easy for him, it would be easy for everyone as well. These things that looked like creatures did not seem particularly harmful, but they kept murmuring something that sounded like speech, which was unsettling for Ain. Even if they suddenly act up and threaten her, she had no means to respond, so she had no choice but to keep moving forward until the communicable fairies her teacher had mentioned before appear. The more she thought about it, the worse she felt about being thrown in her, but the most concerning thing was that she could not tell which way was forward. The pressure was now starting to get to her as her head wouldn't turn. Yujin had told her not to fall asleep, but her body felt like it was melting. Her senses were fading as her body started coming apart, being undone by the dimension, and as she lay on the floor with the creatures surrounding her, all she could call out for was Yujin's name. Meanwhile, on the roof, Yujin was laughing while watching funny videos on his phone. He thought that he should also make a promotional video for his academy, which was this entertaining, so that more people would watch it. It was easy to laugh while watching himself, but finding the humorous points that make people laugh was really hard. Thinking that he should ask Ain about this, as she was young and knew about these trends. But just then, his head was suddenly blown apart by a spell. Yujin almost lifted his hand from the portal due to the sudden attack, but was able to regain balance and keep it open. He was surprised by the sudden assault as Choi appeared above him with his spells ready, attacking Yujin once more on the back, slamming him to the ground. He asked Yujin if he had been well, saying how he could not sleep at night thinking about him. But starting today, he was going to sleep soundly, with his legs stretched out. Choi's men, who were looking at Yujin, had first thought that their director was overacting, but when they saw it up close, they understood. The creepiness and anxiety that dug into their skin, grating on every nerve. It was obvious that what they were facing was a monster that needed to be erased from this world. Seeing Choi, Yujin wondered why he was unable to sleep at night, thinking about him. That kind of thing was troublesome, as he had thought that they had already cleared up the misunderstanding, wondering why Choi was doing this. Just then, he remembered something, recalling his time with Jung when he was unable to understand something. He asked Jung about why the approval process for using strong magic was so complicated and cumbersome, saying that with such strict regulations, research and inventions that would help the world would be delayed. Jung told him that it was indeed a difficult problem. Explaining how magic that could greatly impact the world, like dimensional travel or summoning magic, was something that people could freely use without approval from the Alliance that manages mages worldwide, it would certainly help solve dangerous situations and accelerate magical development. But there was no bottom to human malicious intent when left unregulated and unmanaged. That is why, to exert good influence through magic, they needed corresponding authority and recognition from many people, telling Yujin that he had his guarantee as an archmage, so he would be fine. But there might be situations where he won't be able to receive Jung's help, so he needed to build up his own reputation and authority so that everyone could trust him and feel at ease. Looking at the dimensional gate magic that he had used, he wondered if Choi had come here because he had used such a high-level magic without permission. Turning to him, he said that he would accept appropriate punishment for his reckless actions later, but he could not stop the magic right now, as it would be very problematic. But Choi signaled Tae to get ready as he began preparing the Tier 2 anti-regeneration spell, asking Choi and the others to buy him some time as he got it ready, with them preparing to fight. As they all started throwing spells at him, Yujin thought about how they seemed quite angry, affirming that he must keep his strong sense of law-abiding spirit. But he could not afford to get hit in the head right now, telling Choi to calm down for a moment and listen to what he had to say. But as he raised his hand, it was immediately cut off by one of the attackers, making him think how mages were quite aggressive these days, as they all seemed to know that he wouldn't get hurt, but kept attacking. Yujin decided to restore himself first, but suddenly, his hands stopped reacting, with his body being unable to connect back together. This surprised Yujin, as Choi gloated that he must be quite confused because of this. He said that one of his proud disciples had learned restoration blocking magic from the Northern European monster hunters, explaining that it was advanced magic that blocked everything from healing biological tissue through mana to self-repair of inorganic matter. So Yujin's disgusting restoration magic wouldn't work anymore. Yujin realized that the spell was a lower-tier version of the restoration block that Jung had used on him during their private talk. Even though the structure was much simpler and the performance was lower, it was magic organized in a way that anyone could use it. Yujin then realized that this wasn't the time to be impressed, as normally he could tear off magic like this with his runeless magic. But right now, he had allocated most of his brain's computational function to maintaining the dimensional gate. If the magic stopped or he couldn't use his hands, Ain's connection to this world would be severed. If that happened, it would be really troublesome, so he begged Choi to stop, as it was not just about his safety. But Choi did not listen, ordering everyone to attack, telling them Yujin was a monster that won't die even if torn to pieces, so they should not hesitate and use maximum power. Yujin was swarmed by everyone attacking him as he told them to just wait a moment, asking them not to aim for the head or hands, as he begged them to stop for a moment. In the fairy dimension, Ain suddenly got up, hearing noises, as she was jolted awake by a monster standing over her. The creature was happy to see that she had fully regained consciousness, saying that he had to adjust her brain without permission for forced adaptation and translation. This confused Ain, but the creature warned her that if she lost consciousness in this world without the proper adaptation procedure, she would dissolve into space. The creature then pointed out how Ain had almost let go of the rope, saying that she must need it to return. The creature said that it had called out to her many times, but she had ignored him without answering, hurting his feelings. Surprised to see that a lost child like her had drifted here without preparation. Ain was amazed to see the creature, wondering if they were the residents of the fairy country that Yujin had talked about. She then realized that the murmurs from earlier were them talking to her, and that they were beside her the whole time, but because of their appearance, she did not realize that they were intelligent creatures capable of speech. She then thanked the fairy, explaining that she had not come here by mistake, but was actually sent by her teacher, Yujin, telling them how he had said that if she came here, she could get help from Yujin's friends. The creatures were surprised to hear about Yujin, talking among themselves about how Ain had Yujin's scent and was able to come here in the first place. But looking at the reactions of the fairies, she became even more nervous as they seemed to be angry. The fairies then decided to take her, putting her on their backs as they rode her away. Ain was not sure how she was supposed to interpret this reaction, as fairies asked her about what she had said earlier, with them and Yujin being friends. They explained that she was under a great misunderstanding, saying how she must have known, as she had experienced him herself. But it would be better if she heard it directly herself, as the fairies took her to their leader, telling her to pay her respects properly as she was standing before the queen, Mother Sita. Ain was in awe to see the giant creature looking at her as she realized that Yujin had no idea what fairies were. In the real world, Tae said that his magic was definitely working normally and that he was properly blocking the regeneration of the severed parts too. But looking at Yujin, He was not sure how to respond, as he was not even sure that they were actually neutralizing him. Looking at him now, being left only as a head and an arm, he asked what exactly they were dealing with right now. Yujin understood that he was in a troublesome position. He had somehow protected his head and hand, but maintaining the dimensional gate in this state was too difficult. He called out to Ain, telling her to hurry up just a bit more. Choi asked his men what they were hesitating about, telling them not to get swept up in that creepy sensation. Pointing at Yujin, he said that his hideous shape couldn't possibly be a normal state, saying that he was as good as done. Choi did not know what the hole Yujin was holding onto was, but it was shrinking bit by bit, so it was proof that damage was piling up on his body. He then decided to finish it off himself, asking Yujin if he could hear him. He had stood there dumbfounded without landing a single counterattack until he had ended up looking like that while guarding that suspicious hole. Choi did not know what it was. Rather, he did not even want to know. He assumed that it had to be some evil, horrific spell in preparation, for if it weren't something that important, there would be no reason to defend it all the way to that sorry state without resisting even once, with that vicious transformation magic he had used on him before. He asked Yujin if he had any idea how much anxiety he had caused the local citizens just by existing, saying that everyone instinctively knew how evil he was. The anxiety and fear he was inflicting on the citizens, and on top of that his own sense of defeat, he would set it all right here. He would completely neutralize Yujin and drag him before the Alliance's tribunal. Yujin then called out to Choi, saying that he won't make any excuses and that he fully realized his mistakes, so he would faithfully accept the punishment he deserves. Asking him to give him a little time, as he would get it out right now without delay. Seeing Yujin's body change shape again made Choi question what he was doing. He then struck Yujin's head with his magic blade in order to stop him once and for all. Choi finally thought that it was over, as no matter what magic he used, after tearing him up this much, it should be the end. But he was then surprised, as he saw Yujin's body coil around his sword. Choi wondered what was happening as it was slicing clean just a moment ago, but Yujin's body began restoring itself. He felt sorry for the struggling Dean Choi, but he needed more time, even if he had to push himself as he activated his runeless magic. In the spirit realm, the fairy queen asked Ain if Yujin had sent her here. Ain thought how she was bigger than any magic creature that she had seen by several times over. The queen then asked Ain if she was Yujin's blood relative, but Ain told her that she was just his disciple. The queen now understood why Yujin's scent was so strong on her, realizing that Yujin had finally taken the path of a teacher. She then remembered how Ain had said that they were Yujin's friends, asking if that was what Yujin called them. She was unable to believe that an existence like Yujin would consider them friends. This confused Ain, as they could not read their expressions, but were sure that this did not feel like a friendly vibe. She thought that, as clueless as Yujin was, he must have messed up somehow without realizing and earned their dislike, and without knowing, he had sent her alone to a dangerous place like this. The queen then corrected Ain, saying that Yujin was this world's one and only savior, surprising her. The queen explained that the feelings toward the savior who risked his life to save their world weren't just friendship, they were immeasurable gratitude and awe. And if she were Yujin's disciple, she was a most precious guest to them. The queen officially welcomed Ain here, as the fairies told her to make herself at home. They said that since she did not come together with Yujin, it must mean that he was busy helping others in the other world as well. Asking her if Yujin was doing well. They then said that if they had known she was sent by Yujin, they would have treated her with the utmost hospitality from the start. Telling Ain that he had bestowed upon them a sacrifice and grace they could never repay in a lifetime. Ain thought that the fairies were being so overly kind that it was burdensome, wondering just what Yujin had helped them with to get treated like royalty. The queen then asked Ain what business she had come here for. Ain explained that due to various circumstances, she could not use magic anymore, and she had heard that if she mentioned that she was sent here by Yujin, she could get help using magic. The queen said that the trick Yujin came up with and wielded was inspired by their traits. She agreed to help Ain by letting one of her children join her in the world she came from, saying that with Yujin's help, it would be a great aid in solving the problem she was facing. Ain thanked the queen, but then the fairies suddenly jumped at her, with all of them saying that they wanted to go with her. It was a chance to reunite with Yujin and experience the other world, asking Ain to take them with her as their skills would be a huge help. Ain realized that Yujin was their idol, and somehow it felt like they wanted to see Yujin more than actually helping her, which was kind of hurtful. These were the fairies that had served as the motif for his magic back then. Ain thought how magic using fairy power was rare, but every instance was useful and powerful. They all looked super strong as is, and they would be pretty useful until she got her magic back. They might not look the most appealing, but if she could use magic again, she could handle it no problem. Ain then started choosing from among the fairies, but just then, the rope in her hand changed as Yujin's voice started calling out to her. Ain was surprised to see him, as Yujin informed her that she needed to hurry back, as there was big trouble over there. She was surprised that he had just sent his eyes and mouth out of nowhere, asking what he meant by trouble. Yujin explained that he was keeping the dimensional gate open for Ain, but then something happened. Before he could complete his explanation, however, the fairies swarmed him, excited to see him after all this time. They asked if he was wearing the clothes they had given him, as he said that they fit perfectly, so Her loved it and wore them all the time. They all wanted to talk more with him, but Yujin apologized to them, saying that he should have come in person, but had to rush back with Ain right now as he coiled the rope around her. This shocked Ain as he had not picked a partner yet, but the queen told her that there was no need to pick, offer her a child of hers to take with them. Ain was surprised to see the tentacle before her, but then it sprang open and went into her skull, leaving a fairy inside her body. Yujin then rushed off, saying that they would greet them another time, with the fairies telling him to visit again. They then turned towards the Queen Mother, saying that she did not need to go that far, as any one of them could have gone with Ain. But the Queen respected Yujin and his choices, as it did not seem like a choice that would make sense even by human standards. But that was just the kind of person Yujin was. She asked Ain to be a pillar of support they could rely on, as the two left with Ain screaming. In the real world, Roy was screaming, seeing his body being melted. Choi told him not to panic as there was no pain, wondering why Yujin had taken it all lying down. The repair block magic was shut off ages ago, and no attack magic could stop him anymore as he captured and melted all of them. Even though they could not catch Ain, for them to be helpless like this was ridiculous. Before being a mage, he wondered if Yujin was even human. Choi blamed himself for coming against an enemy they could not handle, all because of his inferiority complex. More men then rushed to the rooftop, seeing that things did not go smoothly. But as they looked at Yujin, they wondered just what he was, with Choi saying that it was something they shouldn't have touched. He said that he will go and pull the men stuck in Yujin off, telling the others to gather mana for a 2-rune magic. They asked him if he was really going to do this, but Choi told them to leave the aftermath to him as he rushed towards Yujin. Pulling his men out, he was sorry that he had forced them to deal with this mess. The others began preparing the magic as Choi freed more of his students. He told everyone to leave and put up shields if they could. He did not expect Yujin to die from this, but hoped that it would seal him, at least temporarily, summoning a 2-rune spell, Ultra Vibration Soul Prison. But before he could use it, he saw Ain pop out of the hole, landing on the roof with a thud. Ain complained to Yujin that if he was going to send her to such a ridiculous mess, he should have explained it properly beforehand. Yujin apologized to her, saying that it must have been disorienting in the unfamiliar environment, but Ain found that Yujin's current state was even stranger and more disorienting. She asked why he was in such a rush, but Choi was shocked to see Ain here, wondering how she could have popped out of there, as Ain was equally shocked to see him. He then pointed out how she was supposed to be overseas, but she wanted to know why he was here. Yujin then said that he should explain it properly, telling them that Ain had lost her mana, so she could not use magic. So he was going to teach her runeless spells that did not need mana, which he had made and enrolled her as one of his academy students. Ain struggled to stop Yujin from revealing her secrets, as he continued saying that Ain wanted to use magic again as soon as possible, so he sent her to ask for help from the fairies in another dimension where he used to live. But he had forgotten that dimensional magic was regulated magic, saying that he was sorry, but before he could do so, he fell on the ground, having pushed himself too hard as he fell asleep. The police then arrived at Yujin's academy as Detective Kim rushed in, having gotten a report that there was a huge disturbance at the academy building. Sha then noticed Choi and his men standing there with Yujin on the ground, wondering what was going on. Ain took off her cap to rub her head, irritated by the situation, as the little fairy popped out of her head.